Above the scene of a runaway train derailing about 90 minutes away from Las Vegas.
So Kelly Curran joins us now from Sky 3, the only news helicopter in the state with the latest information.
Hi there, yeah, just back from Kelso here at the scene of that trail derailment that happened around 10 o'clock this morning. So let's take a look at this video. It is crazy to see. So 55 cars, including 2 engines, derailing here, crashing into the desert. You can see the 2 engines there. One of those engines is leaking fuel. So Hazmat is on the scene handling that part of the incident. We are told that the train was carrying iron ore, no passengers, no injuries, and they do not tell us that there's no major issues as far as toxins being released into the air or the ground here other than that fuel leak. But you also want to point out, look at the crater that this train dug as it derailed. Now we understand that the train lost control, was a bit of a runaway train. The crew had jumped off. Like I said, no injuries and no passengers involved, but this is definitely going to cause some problems with freight going to and from both Arizona and California here, as we actually did see some trains stopped on the tracks before we got to the scene. They can't get through because, as you can see, the tracks are completely obliterated here. So we'll hopefully be able to find out more information later on exactly what caused this crash. But as far as we know right now, no injuries, and that's the important part, guys.
All right, so we just got a statement, in fact, from Union Pacific itself, talking about much of what Kelly just said about those 55 cars, those 2 locomotives being involved in this. Thankfully, no injuries reported. The crew jumped off, and they're also saying, as did Kelly, that those derailed cars were carrying iron ore, which spilled. It's part of the steel making process, according to the company. It is not hazardous material. In fact, there was no hazardous material on board the train when this happened. They do tell us that this incident is still under investigation at this hour. Of course, we'll continue to look at this and hopefully find out some more information as it becomes available.
Lawmakers in Carson City looking over a new proposal to help control how much water Nevada takes from Lake Mead. Some say it is a great conservation measure.
Others are not so sure. News 3's Steve Wolford joins us live from our little patch of grass out in the courtyard here at News 3 with a closer look at AB 220.
Yeah, that's right. And hopefully the sprinklers won't kick on while I'm out here talking to you guys. AB 220 contains a number of provisions that would make Nevada a lot more water efficient. It contains, among other things, this.
Is a provision that would allow the Southern Nevada Water Authority Board of Directors to limit single-family residential water use to half an acre-foot of water per year.
So how much is Bronson Mack with the Southern Nevada Water Authority talking about? A good way to visualize a half-acre-foot of water is an area from the Raiders logo to the goal line at Allegiant Stadium covered in 1 foot of water. Or
that's about 160,000 gallons of water per year,
which Mack says is a comfortable 30,000 gallons a year more than 80% of the households in Southern Nevada will use.
The vast majority of residential properties are well below that half an acre foot limit, and this provision would really allow the Water Authority to put limitations on those that are our largest water users.
The largest users, the so-called water hogs.
I'm for it.
Kanan Tabig says it's a great idea.
I think there has to be conservation, and it's too much stuff. Everybody can just turn on a tap, just as much as they want.
I feel like in this state it might be necessary, only because I don't think everybody adheres to the water limits with your lawn.
Venus Ramos, who works in landscaping, also thinks water limits are a good idea, but she also sees another side of the coin.
And I pay a water bill. I own my own home. So at the end of the day, yeah, I pay for it. So why are you telling me how much I can use of it?
But even if this provision in AB 220 is included in the final version of the bill, it would not immediately take effect. That decision would ultimately be made by water managers.
It would allow, under state law, the Southern Nevada Water Authority Board the ability to be able to take that action again if and when it was needed.
Right now, AB 220 is still in committee. We'll continue to follow its progress and let you know when or if it goes to the full assembly, along with any possible amendments.
The Clark County School District is now trying to get some lawmakers to help them get more and keep more educators.
It's a big challenge at a time when the district and schools really across America are suffering from teacher shortages. Crisis in the Classroom investigative reporter Tiffany Lane is here in the studio to tell us about this new strategy.
Yes, Jim Latoya, some say the shortage is even worse here in Clark County. Now today, the Clark County School District presented a bill that would reduce licensing fees and also look at providing housing to educators at a more affordable cost. Lawmakers had a lot of questions.
If we're serious about disrupting cycles of poverty, fostering a diverse educator workforce that reflects the social and cultural experiences of the students that we seek to serve, we must be mindful of the financial barriers.
CCSD's Director of Government Relations, Patricia Haddad, proposed two components of a bill that the district says will get and keep teachers in our classrooms. She did this in front of the Senate Education Committee. The first part of Senate Bill 47, lowering fees for educator licensing, capping fees at $50 for initial licenses and renewals. Right now, fees are at $180 for new licenses and $150 for renewals, plus $50 for each additional endorsement.
Charging folks hundreds of dollars to do a job we desperately need, I think, is counterintuitive, to say the least.
Haddad used Hawaii as an example of a state that removed licensing fees altogether and had an influx of teacher applicants. Some asked if other barriers could be removed as well, including who does the background checks for these licenses.
I've heard of that complaint, and not necessarily strictly just from teachers, but in the community in general, when they're trying to get involved, whether it be as in a volunteer basis, or they're waiting in the pipeline and it takes 2 or 3 months just for that background check to come back. And there's often been this question raised of why don't we allow for the private sector to come in and really help clear up some of those backlogs.
I don't have a great answer to why we don't engage with the private sector on providing those fingerprinting or background check services. I think my understanding of the process right through the state is that it is sent over to the Central Repository, which is also a state agency, and there is a delay in the processing on that end.
The other main part of Senate Bill 47 clarifies language that allows school boards of trustees to help provide affordable housing for educators who may be struggling with housing costs. Current laws allow trustees to build, buy, or rent residential dwellings known as teacherages. Under this bill, the language is clarified on what the definition of a teacherage is, and also to make sure the bill language includes other employees like support staff, your bus drivers, office staff, etc.
We have a shortage of housing units that educators can afford. And, over the past few years, we've seen unprecedented spikes in the cost of housing.
Haddad clarified we don't currently have any teacherages in Clark County. Some lawmakers, like Senator Neal, had questions about whether CCSD has discussed liability when it comes to a district owning housing.
Just the same way as a student is harmed, what's the liability? You have a tenant, school-owned building, liability, whether or not it's a home or not.
In relation to the transfer of liability, I don't have that specific information in front of me at this time, and I can provide that.
We heard support for the bill following the presentation.
We have to provide some housing for people, and we have to get this licensure issue straightened out so that people can afford to come out of college with a lot of debt on their head and get their licenses so they can teach.
And speaking in support of Senate Bill 47 to reduce the teacher license costs, and we also appreciate the sponsor's focus on the inclusion of our education support professionals.
Now, do you believe lowering licensing fees and providing affordable housing for employees will bring more staff in our schools? Is this a realistic proposal? And are there additional approaches you'd like to see taken? Send me your tips on this and other issues impacting our schools. Scan that QR code on your screen or email schooltips@news3lv.com. You can also call 702-805-0489.
Subscribe to News 3 on YouTube at News 3 Las Vegas.